listening to technicians, people will decide what to do and how to do it. For how is not neutral and the what is not disembodied. What and how are neither identical, nor external to each other. A neutral technique is, of course, an illusion. A conveyor belt is linked to a type of product and a type of producer, and vice versa. However, we must stress that while an anarchist society would inherit a diverse level of expertise and specialization from class society, it would not take this as unchangeable. Anarchists argue for all-round or integral education as a means of ensuring that everyone has a basic knowledge or understanding of science, engineering and other specialized tasks. As Bakunin argued, in the interests of both labor and science, there should no longer be either workers or scholars but only human beings. Education must prepare every child of each sex for the life of thought as well as for the life of labor. This does not imply the end of all specialization. Individuals will, of course, express their individuality and know more about certain subjects than others, but it does imply the end of the artificial specialization developed under capitalism, which tries to de-skill and disempower the wage worker by concentrating knowledge into hands of management. And, just to state the obvious, self-management does not imply that the mass of workers decide on the application of specialized tasks. Self-management implies the autonomy of those who do the work as well as collective decision-making on collective issues. For example, in a self-managed hospital, the cleaning staff would not have a say in the doctor's treatment of patients, just as the doctors would not tell the cleaners how to do their work. Of course, it is likely that an anarchist society will not have people whose work is simply to clean and nothing else. We just use this as an example people will understand. All members of a syndicate would have a say in what happens in the workplace as it affects them collectively, but individual workers and groups of workers would manage their own activity within that collective. Needless to say, self-management abolishes the division of labor inherent in capitalism between order takers and order givers. It integrates, to use Kropotkin's words, brain work and manual work by ensuring that those who do the work also manage it and that a workplace is managed by those who use it. Such an integration of labor will, undoubtedly, have a massive impact in terms of productivity, innovation and efficiency. As Kropotkin argued, the capitalist firm has a negative impact on those subject to its hierarchical and alienating structures. The worker whose task has been specialized by the permanent division of labor has lost the intellectual interest in his or her labor, and it is especially so in the great industries. He has lost his inventive powers. Formerly, he, or she, invented very much. But since the great factory has been enthroned, the worker, depressed by the monotony of his work, invents no more. Must all the skills, experience and intelligence that very one has be swept away or crushed by hierarchy? Or could it not become a new fertile source of progress under a better organization of production? Self-management would ensure that the independence, initiative and inventiveness of workers, which disappears under wage slavery, comes to the fore and is applied. Combined with the principles of all-round or integral education, who can deny that working people could transform the current economic system to ensure well-being for all? And we must stress that by well-being, we mean well-being in terms of meaningful, productive activity in humane surroundings and using appropriate technology, in terms of goods of utility and beauty to help create strong, healthy bodies, and in terms of surroundings which are inspiring to live. Little wonder that Kropotkin argued that self-management and the erasing of the present distinction between the brain workers and manual worker would see social benefits arising from the concordance of interest and harmony so much wanted in our times of social struggles and the fullness of life which would result for each separate individual, if he were enabled to enjoy the use of both mental and bodily powers. This is in addition to the increase of wealth which would result from having educated and well-trained producers. It is the face-to-face meetings that bring workers directly into the management process and give them power over the economic decisions that affect their lives. In social anarchism, Since the means of production are owned by society as a whole, decisions on matters like how to apportion the existing means of production among the syndicates, how to distribute and reinvest the surpluses, etc. will be made by the grassroots social units, like the community assemblies, not by the workers' councils. This does not mean that workers will have no voice in decisions about such matters, but only that they will vote on them as citizens in their local community assemblies, not as workers in their local syndicates. As mentioned before, this is because not everyone will belong to a syndicate, yet everyone will still be affected by economic decisions of the above type. This is an example of how the social/political and economic structures of social anarchy are intertwined. Lastly, the introduction of workers' self-management will be a product of two processes. Firstly, the class struggle will help workers gain experience of managing their own affairs. Struggles to resist oppression and exploitation in the workplace will mean that workers will have to organize themselves to manage those struggles. This will be an important means of accustoming them to make their own decisions. By participating in the structures created to conduct the class war, they will gain the skills and experience needed to go beyond class society. The process of struggle will ensure we can manage our own working time when we take over the means of life and abolish wage slavery. Secondly, today workers do manage their own working time to a considerable extent. As we have argued before, the capitalist may buy hour of the worker's time, but they have to ensure that the worker follows their orders during that time. Workers resist this imposition, and this results in considerable shop floor conflict. Frederick T., for example, introduced his system of scientific management, in part to try and stop workers managing their own working activity. As David Noble notes, workers pace themselves for many reasons: to keep time for themselves, to avoid exhaustion, to exercise authority over their work, to avoid killing so-called gravy piece rate jobs by overproducing and risking a pay cut, to stretch out available work for fear of layoffs, to exercise their creativity, and, last but not least, to express their solidarity and their hostility to management. These were coupled with collective cooperation with their fellows on the floor, and labor-prescribed norms of behavior to achieve shop floor control over production. In other words,